Welcome everyone to our fourth episode of the podcast, fourth episode of Walk Your Path. So today we have a special guest on, and this is, how do I say your name? Taylor Hester, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So I found you on the Grown Unschoolers website.
Yeah, around basically from 2012 to 2018 when I decided I was just done with school. It was pretty much all unschooling. So about 6 years it was just unschooling. And before that it was about 2 or 3-ish years of homeschooling. If someone asked me, I would just say I'm homeschooled. Because if you say you're unschooled, it kind of has like some negative connotations, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see. What do you usually tell people about yourself when you first meet them? Can you just give us like a brief introduction so people know who you are?
Okay, yeah, I'm a pretty introverted person, so I stay indoors a lot. I play video games. I have like kind of a tight-knit group of friends. And yeah, there's really, I gotta say, I'm not the most interesting person ever, but I'd like to think I'm decently kind to people, but I'm also not super good at introducing myself most of the time. So I'm friendly and people generally like me, but I don't have like a huge array of friends. Like I said, it's mostly tight knit. So yeah, I'm pretty much just like a nerdy, introverted, average Joe kind of guy, I suppose.
I see. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that's a good introduction, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think I read on your interview, are you originally from St. Louis and then you moved to Texas?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, I spent the first basically 12 years of my life in St. Louis. And then when we moved here, that's kind of when the unschooling started in 2012. Because it was such a hassle and both the parents were working and it was just, so that's when that started. And that's when we moved to Texas, and so I've been here for quite some time now. I guess I can call myself a Texan at this point.
Uh-huh. Do you like Texas better, would you say? I think it's like not a great question, but
I don't know. I still am conflicted about this. If you had asked me this like 5 years ago, I would have said absolutely not, because I really missed St. Louis when we first moved. But slowly over the years, it started to grow on me a bit, especially because we live in a more rural area. It's more like in the hill country. And so I've gotten used to that. And I kind of actually really like being more removed from like city life, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm also moving into the city in 2 weeks. So
Oh, really?
that's something, yeah.
Is that for your work? Or
so that's actually it's kind of what made me get a job, because I kept telling myself, oh, I'm going to get a job soon, I need to get on that. But when you're living with your parents with no payments or anything, it's kind of it was hard to make myself go get a job. And so my brother and his roommate, their lease is up in 2 weeks, and so a couple weeks ago from today, they asked me if I wanted to move out with them, and I was like, sure, it's time, can't stay with the parents forever.
yeah, I see. So it's like that responsibility calling.
Yeah, kind of. It's time to get out of the house and get a job, and this is both of them kind of make me be an adult, so But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's definitely an adjustment, but one that everyone has to take. So
Yeah. Is that like something your parents always tell you, or more something that you kind of established for yourself?
it's more something I established for myself. I mean, they're super supportive. They've said, because my older siblings lived here for a while too. My brother didn't move out until he was like 22, I think.
Mm.
And eventually they told him, they were like, you got to do something. Like, you got to be saving up money or going to college or something if you're going to live here. You can't just sit in your room all day. And so a little bit of pressure from that, but I mean, they wouldn't be very good parents if they let me just sit in my bedroom all day either. So,
Yeah.
but they're by no means kicking me out of the house. This is my own decision to do that right now.
I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds exciting. Definitely.
It is. It's a lot. I don't know why I decided to do it in the midst of a pandemic, but
yeah, that is an interesting time when you've had trouble like taking those first steps to do it now. Yeah, and I definitely will want to cover like topic of college and that kind of pressure that sometimes people get to go to college or do something with their life. But I guess I would like to, before we dive into that, I'd like to start from the start, right?
Okay.
Yeah, like I guess you've definitely had, I would say, like a unique upbringing, just because I think the unschooling community is pretty small, although people in the community probably would just say it's their life. But I guess, how did you understand homeschooling, unschooling when you were growing up as a kid?
So, I mean, when I was a small kid, like a small child going to school, I didn't know what homeschooling was at all, or unschooling for that matter. And it wasn't until second grade that my mom kind of like brought up the idea of it. And then a few weeks later, she was like, yeah, you guys aren't going to school anymore. I'm pulling you out and we're going to try this out. And I was like, this is cool. I don't have to go to school anymore. And then I remember the first day of homeschooling, she woke us up, called us into the dining room where we had the dining table just filled with books, and she told us to take a seat. And she just started basically like trying to do teacher things, but it was really hard on her, I think, because we were all three in different grades, and she was trying to just like teach us all at once. So it was a very interesting situation, I guess, going from going to school every day to just waking up far later and walking into my dining room as a kid and just sitting there next to my siblings and having my mom tell me what to do. I was like, this doesn't seem like this is legitimate, I felt like it wasn't actually school. Felt like I was cheating somehow. But over the years, I obviously got used to it, and we got into this homeschool network, and we started going to like what was called park days, where we would all go to a park and just hang out and socialize, whatever. And met a lot of friends there, and it became normal. And eventually I was like, yeah, this is way better than public school for me, at least. And I still didn't really know much about unschooling for a few years there. The thing is, there were unschoolers in our group, but they didn't talk about it. And so I had heard the term unschooling, but I didn't know what it meant. I thought it was just they didn't learn anything. I was like, how do you do that and get by? But yeah, so I didn't really know how unschooling worked really until we moved to Texas, and we were still trying to homeschool, but it just started slowly fizzling out. And when I realized that it was all like kind of on me to educate myself, and I was kind of choosing what and when to do it, I was kind of like, oh, that makes sense. And when you don't have anyone
Mm.
teaching you or any like set schedule, you can't really call it homeschooling anymore. So,
Yeah.
yeah. When did you start hearing about unschooling and homeschooling and stuff?
Oh yeah. I only heard about it much later. Well, of course I knew about homeschooling just from word of mouth and I don't know, articles or something. But it wasn't until high school that I heard about unschooling, and I was in the public school system for most of my life.
Yeah.
And then I heard about it and then decided to leave high school early after hearing about unschooling. Mm-hmm.
And so did you just unschool for like the last year of high school?
Pretty much, yeah, like the last year and a half. I just did my own thing.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. Um, yeah. As a kid, was it very confusing for you when you were making that transition from uh-huh.
It was confusing a little bit, but in a good way, because again, at the time, no kid likes going to school. So it was very confusing and it's kind of hard to focus on the schoolwork when I'm at home with my family. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to not do that. But it wasn't too confusing. I mean, I gotta hand it to my mom. She did a really good job of like starting us all off kind of where we left public school at. So, I mean, just picking up textbooks, go to a quiet area and just do it. It wasn't too different aside from obviously the lack of other children around you. So it was a little bit confusing. I wasn't entirely sure that it was going to work out. It felt like a temporary thing for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, eventually I got used to it and it became the more normal.
Yeah. Were you ever like curious about why your mom decided to homeschool you guys and eventually unschool?
Yeah, so a lot of her friends in the neighborhood, because one of my brother's friends was homeschooled from, I mean, basically kindergarten. And he lived in our neighborhood and he would play with my brother all the time. And my mom was friends with his mom and they were just talking all the time. So she kind of introduced her to the concept of it. And there were a lot of things, especially with our public school system, that my mom didn't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, also again involving my brother, he had a little bit of like a problem like paying attention, as many children do.
Yeah.
And instead of just trying to be patient with him, the school system basically told my mom he needed to be on ADHD pills. And so they put him on these pills that he would have to swallow with lunch every single day. And they started making him a little bit sick. And he was like getting a little bit lethargic and stuff. So my mom took him off of those. And she was like, "What is wrong with you guys?" And they were just like, "He wasn't paying attention." So after that, she was kind of, I don't know what the right word is. She just wasn't very happy with that public school system, and I think that was one of the main factors in her pulling us all out.
I see. Yeah. The school made your brother take the pills?
So they couldn't enforce it, but they said, "We don't know what else we can do. We can't do anything for him. Either he's going to have to leave the school or you can try him on these pills and see if they help." And so my mom, I mean, she was the one that made the decision to take him to the doctor and get the pills, obviously. But she was kind of like pressured into it by the school in a way.
Mm.
And so after that, she was like, "Okay, maybe it is a good idea that he's not in school anymore, and I'll just teach him and my other kids." all at once.
I see.
Mm.
Yeah, I have read articles about like horror stories with ADHD pills and kids in school, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, your mom's decision to do that. Do you have any opinions on it?
Um, I think she made the right decision. If I really think about it, I don't know that I would have made that decision just because, like I said, we were all in different grades and it was kind of like, it was very ambitious of her to undertake that. And I don't know how she managed to do it for any time at all, like, let alone a few years. But I am very happy that she did do that because, I mean, if I had just stayed in public school, I don't think I would be the same person I am today. So I'm happy with the way things played out. But again, I don't think I would have made the same decision that she did because that seemed awful.
Yeah, it sounds like it was pretty tough on her.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think, do you ever like wonder what would have happened if you stayed in public school? Like, do you ever imagine the scenario?
I do. It's hard for me because I got kind of pulled out halfway through second grade, so I was only 9 years old.
Yeah.
But I like to think I was pretty popular for a 9-year-old in my grade, so I don't know. For like my sister, when she was pulled out, she was in middle school, so she was like right in the thick of when all the drama starts happening. So I think it's easier for her to imagine, and she would tell you like she would never want to go back because she immediately started getting like bullied, and then it's just like all this drama and stuff. Whereas I would just like go, flip the swing a couple times on the playground during the lunch break, and then people would be like, "Oh my god, that was awesome!" So like, but it is hard to imagine how different I would be if I stayed in public school, because I think a lot of my kind of ideals and all of my friends are from the homeschool / unschooling network, both in St. Louis and here. That you're changed by the people you're around. So if I was never around any of those people, then who knows?
I see. Yeah. So I see, yeah. So it's like you don't really have something to base that imagination off of. Like, you can't imagine yourself because you don't know how it would turn out. You don't have
Yeah, basically. Like, anytime I imagine it, it's a different scenario. Like, oh, I could be like this, or I could be like this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I see. So you did homeschooling and then switched over to unschooling. Like, was there a time when, can you tell me a time when maybe you doubted your education experience or like schooling experience?
Yes. So shortly after moving here and kind of starting the unschooling part of it, for a while I was content just like not really doing anything and just playing video games and kind of doing whatever I wanted. And then around age 13, 14, when you start just getting self-conscious about yourself in general, I got super self-conscious about my education level compared to my friends and new people I was meeting and just really anyone else that was my age. And so I started really doubting. I was wondering if I should ask to try to go to public school again, but I also really did not want to do that because I was like, I started developing social anxiety too. So I was like, no, that's like the worst thing possible. So is either go to public school, do nothing and just slowly get more and more self-conscious about this, or just start trying to educate myself in a way that satisfies me. So just keep learning until I'm satisfied with my level of education, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But there definitely were a few good years there where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is probably not right, but I think it turned out okay.
Good. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, plus like that was when you just moved. So it sounds like it must have been pretty stressful on you.
It was. Again, at the time, I was kind of just, it was stressful because of the move and the changing of everything. But at the time, because I was home alone with my siblings so often, we would just hang out, play video games, feed ourselves. And that was pretty much it for a while. So I think it probably more stressful for both of my siblings because they were older and kind of, I guess, having to take care of me a little bit more too during all of this. And suddenly, when you go from homeschooling and having your mom basically like with you at home all the time to having her almost never at home because she has a full-time job, it's very a drastic change. And when you have no parental figures there, all of a sudden you're just like, what do I do with my time?
Yeah. So it's like no structure at all? Like nobody telling you what to do at all?
Not really. So she would write out these weekly schedules for us where she's like, on Monday you're going to do this, this, and this. And then on Tuesday you're going to do this and this. But she wasn't there to enforce it. And she also didn't have enough time when she got back to like review or test us or anything to make sure we actually did it. So eventually you can imagine a bunch of kids that didn't want to do school. You're just like, yeah, we did it, Mom. We tried her best.
Yeah, eventually she must have caught on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think probably she realized like pretty quickly, but she was just like, she couldn't do much about it. So she was just like, okay, you guys just do what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, did she ever like threaten you guys? Like, if you don't do this, I'm gonna make you go back to school or something like that?
No, she never did that. She had a much more tactful approach, I think, with it. She would basically sat down and kind of, I guess, kickstarted my self-conscious like being of the education levels and whatnot. So she would basically say, if you don't do this and learn these things, you're going to be stupid compared to everyone else. So I was like, fair enough.
I see. Okay. Yeah. And was your dad? Did your dad do a full-time job also during this time?
Yeah. So we moved in, and that's when I started living with my stepdad because there was like a divorce mixed in there, so messy.
See. Yeah.
So I started living with my stepdad as well, but he not only had a full-time job, but he had to travel for his job. So half the time he was like in another state as well. So, we rarely saw him for probably like a year.
Wow. That was like, yeah, that's like huge life transition moment for a kid. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so you guys were just alone for a lot of the time. So
we were, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We had each other, and my mom would come home sometimes on her days off, and she would like take us to try to meet people and just take us out to the lake and stuff like that. So we had opportunities to get out of the house, but we were definitely hermits compared to other kids our age.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you okay with talking more about, like you mentioned you started developing social anxiety during that time? Are you okay with talking more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was probably kicked off pretty much around when we moved here because, like I said, there was a whole divorce and moving states, leaving all my friends behind, and moving to a more rural area. So I think it's largely in part because we were not secluded, but we were hermits, like I said. We didn't see that many people. I didn't really have any friends that I hung out with besides my siblings. And I had one friend from St. Louis that I would Skype call like all the time. But other than that, I didn't socialize a whole lot, especially with new people. And so for quite some time, I just didn't like the thought of meeting new people. And that just kept growing and growing until probably age 14 or 15, it hit its peak. And I was like, if I do a party, I'm going to say no because I don't like that. Just terrifies me. And eventually it started getting a little bit better. I met some friends that I would actually start hanging out with. And then I think I mentioned in the post that you read, but I started going to this book group in 2015. And that was definitely very helpful, I think. Hello.
Oh, bye.
My apologies. But as I was saying, that was definitely very helpful because it kind of, all of a sudden I was in this group of very much like a classroom, actually. There was probably like 10 people in this book group, and we would read a book, about 2 books a month, get together, discuss it, and then just hang out and socialize for an hour or two afterwards. And that helped tremendously with my social anxiety. So I still definitely deal with that. It's not gone at all, but I can go talk to a store clerk or a stranger, and I'll be fine. So it's definitely manageable now, which I'm thankful for.
I see. Yeah. And at that time, was it like, were you afraid of other people judging you, or was it something else?
It's difficult to, I guess, kind of quantify, but essentially, yes. I was afraid of I didn't know what to say to people, basically. I didn't have anything to say, so I would meet them, I would introduce myself, and then it was just like awkward silence. And in that awkward silence, I was just like, this is the worst thing ever. I need to get out of this right now. But I could never think of anything to say, so it was just like this snowball effect of best not even try to talk to people because it's just going to be awkward and they're going to judge me and it's just not going to go anywhere. So, and then of course, when you're early teenage years, you're already super self-conscious, and so it was just around that time that it started developing really serious. And so I would just stay home, talk to my friend on Skype, talk to my siblings, play video games, and I was content with that for a while. And then I was like, something's got to change. So, yeah, I'm really glad that I was kind of introduced to that book group because they're kind of like a second family to me now. And like I said, they helped not only with the social anxiety, but also with getting me to read books, which I like reading books now. I didn't before that.
I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, what do you think about the book club was so helpful compared to those previous interactions?
So I think it was honestly having just something to talk about. I mean, when you're reading a book and you're hearing what other people think of it, you just share your opinion, and then if you have something to say, you just speak up and say it. People are like, oh yeah, okay. And then it also helped that they were just such a cool group of people and they were really funny. So, it certainly wasn't like I just turned into a social butterfly. Like, I was still just quiet and listening most of the time, but they didn't care. They would still just like make me laugh, and just every once in a while actually talk to me and be like, hey, what did you think of this? And I would answer.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, once I got comfortable with them, then I would be, then it was just like talking to anyone else, it's normal conversations and stuff. So it's really just getting a certain level of comfort with someone before I can just kind of calm down, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. It's like once you know you're okay, it's just everything, it comes out much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when you were in second grade, right? When you were still in public school, were you still introverted? Because like that image of you like wrapping the swing around the bars doesn't sound very introverted. I don't know.
When I was a kid, even after we started homeschooling for a while, I was probably more, as far as kids go, I was more of an extrovert. I mean, I was more of like an attention seeker. Like, hey guys, look at this, look at me do this thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I had quite a few friends in public school in second grade and first grade. And then when we started homeschooling, and I kind of quickly met and befriended a lot of the other kids my age in the homeschool group. We would play tag and all sorts of stuff, and it was just, I had no problem. I would just walk up to strangers and be like, hey, what's up? But, a lot of kids are like that anyway, because they don't have, I think a lot of small kids at least don't have the self-conscious factor. Even if they're shy, it's just because they're afraid of people. It's not really anything about themselves, I don't think. But no, the introversion did not start until probably age 13, 14, I would say.
I see.
Mm-hmm. A big personality change.
Yeah. And well, it was like, sounds like you had a lot to process during that time. So I don't know. Just from how I see it, sounds like what you were doing was just processing that big transition in your life. And then, but it's nice to hear that you were able to find the book club afterwards and kind of reconnect with people in that way. Yeah.
I'm so grateful to all of them for that. Like, we were talking earlier about like trying to imagine what I would have been like if things were different. And when it's similar, when I try to imagine what I would be like today without the book group, I just have no idea.
Yeah. I don't know if I should call it luck or
I think it's absolutely luck.
You think so?
I think so. Because I'm probably like the first kind of friend that I actually made in Texas. His mom ran the book group. So if I hadn't met him and befriended him specifically, I very likely would not have gone at all.
How did you meet that friend?
So I actually didn't want to go to the event we were going to when I met him. It was Halloween of 2014, I believe. And my entire family was going into downtown Austin they were dressing up, going to downtown Austin to hang out with some of my mom's friends. One of them, her name is Courtney. She was the mom who ran the book group. And so they kind of made me go because they didn't want to. They're like, you're home alone all the time. We're not leaving you home alone on Halloween again. You're coming with us. So I dressed up. I went with them, and I met them all at a hotel room where we were going to be staying at that night. And then we just started walking around downtown Austin in costume and just talking. And yeah, pretty much just hit it off. And my friend was actually he and his sister. They're both close friends now, and we hit it off really quickly and just had a great time.
Mm-hmm. So was there that awkwardness with him when you met him, or was it very just like natural?
There was certainly a little bit of awkwardness at the beginning, but he is a very extroverted person, where when he meets someone new, he's just like, hey, what's up? And starts like flirting with them and stuff. And I think it also helped that I was with my family, so I was already a little bit more comfortable. And so there was just a whole group of people that were just like bouncing off each other. So it made it a lot easier for me to just like interject every once in a while and then be silent, but it wasn't awkward because there were other people talking. And then so I would just hop in there with a joke every once in a while, and he'd be like, oh, I like this kid.
Nice.
Yeah. Fun night. I still have the pictures from that night. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. So maybe that was a monumental day.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, that book club sounds like it's even better. Definitely even better than just a random school classroom. I don't know. It sounds like those people really accepted you.
Absolutely. Yeah, they were super accepting. I mean, it's a pretty diverse little group, but I didn't know most of the people there, I don't think, at the time, but they just immediately welcomed me in and made me feel super comfortable very quickly. And yeah, they became, like I said, a second family within a few months of joining, probably.
Oh, but okay, let's just continue, I guess. So like after finding the book club, like what happened after that?
I mean, I pretty much just started going. I wasn't going to like parties or socializing outside of the book group really, but it was more of a slow kind of thing where I would just go to the book group once or twice a month and basically just socialize, hang out with kids my age, talk about books, and then go home. And that's all I really did in terms of socializing for a long time, for a few years. And then we started hanging out slowly. We started hanging out, like once people started getting driver's licenses and stuff, we would actually hang out outside of the book group and like go do things like go to the lake, go camping, stuff like that. And then my brother started bringing home some of his coworkers from his work. And because I was always at home, I would just hang out with them. And so I kind of made a friend. I'm actually going to be living with him, my brother and his roommate, who's his best friend from work. I'm moving in with them in a few weeks. And through them, I have a kind of another little group now because we recently got into Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
So I have a group with that, like a little friend group, and then I still have the book group friends, and then I also still have a friend from St. Louis. So I went from pretty much no friends in 2014 to considerably more by 2015, 16, and now I have a lot of friends, and it's great.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Sounds like lots of fun.
Yeah. It is.
And then with like besides hanging out with your friends, what were you doing? Mostly, I guess after you found the book group, did you just read some? Well, you started reading more, right? Because of the book
Yes.
group.
Yes.
And then, I guess besides that, were you doing anything?
You mean in terms of school? Like school?
Yeah, I guess like
education?
school stuff or hobbies or
Well,
I don't
hobbies was
know.
pretty much just video games for
Yeah,
most of it.
I see.
But I did, in terms of school, and I guess hobbies a little bit. I got a little bit into history, so I started watching a bunch of different like YouTube videos all about history. I read some books. I played historical video games, and so I got super into that. And then that's pretty much all in terms of hobbies. But in terms of school, aside from that, my sister helped me with some math and some science, and I just kept reading a bunch of books for my English, basically. And that's pretty much all I did for a while in terms of schoolwork.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hobbies was mainly YouTube, video games, and occasionally going out with my brother and his friend, and we would like just go to the lake or go see a movie and walk around town or something.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like a very enjoyable life.
It was.
That
For
sounds
a while.
great.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah, and for ancient history, I think I read your on the post. It was ancient history you're interested in, but do you still read about it or like research stuff about that now?
I do occasionally, not as much as I did before, just because I don't have as much free time now.
Mm-hmm.
But it does still interest me. I'll go through phases where I'll get super into it again and do like, read a book, or it's mostly YouTube videos. There are a couple of channels that I just watch and that's super interesting to me. And sometimes it just goes in one ear and out the other, but sometimes I retain at least a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What YouTube channels are they?
So there's the crash courses, which are great. There's a channel called Oversimplified, which is great because, well, it simplifies history, but it also has like a comedic element to it.
Yeah.
So it makes you laugh and you learn at the same time. There's a channel called Kings and Generals that's mostly about ancient warfare and like ancient battles that took place. That's one of my favorites. And then there's also, I don't know if this even counts, but there's a channel called Sam O'Neill, and it's also more of a comedy channel, but he'll basically just take like random weird tidbits from history and do a video on it with little animations, and it's absurd, but it's pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
So those are all the main like channels that I follow, and then every once in a while, once you get into the rabbit hole, like YouTube will just recommend you all sorts of stuff, and you just keep clicking.
Yeah. I've been in that rabbit hole a lot recently, especially. But what interested you? What interested you when you were younger about history, and is it like what did you ever come to recognize what draws you to it?
Funnily enough, I do think it's because of video games, because I played a lot of them, and eventually I started playing a video game series called Total War, which it's like a historical video game set in like ancient antiquity times with this whole world map that's like historically accurate. And I loved it, and I got super addicted to it. And so I think that's kind of what kickstarted my interest about not just like the warfare aspect, but also just like how things happened, like how different countries formed, what everyday life was for people back then, just all sorts of stuff. So it's funny because at the time, my mom was like, you need to stop playing video games and do something else that's actually going to like help you later in life. And then it was actually because of video games that I got interested and actually started learning more. So I just think that's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think it was something about the video games that sparked your imagination?
Definitely, definitely, because I would play the video games all day, and when I wasn't thinking or playing them, I was thinking about playing them, and it kind of and then it got me thinking about like once I kind of, I guess, ran my course with the game. Like there was nothing more to do in it. I had played it basically. I got as much as I was going to get out of it, and so I was just thinking about, oh, it would be cool if there was a game like this, but it also had elements like this. And then I was like, it just kept snowballing, and then my brother kind of got into the game as well, so we would just bounce like game ideas off of each other. And we were always trying to go for like realism, we wanted to be like real and gritty. So eventually we started doing like research as to how we could do that. And then I just got more interested in the history instead of the actual like game development part, which I have no real interest in now.
I see. Wait, so you were interested in game development at that time, like at the same time as history?
Very briefly, yes. Only because we were coming up with ideas and I was getting excited. I was like, I want to make this game that we're thinking of in our mind. And then really as soon as I started doing research into how you make a game with the coding and just everything involved, I was like, no, this is good. And then I was like, well, maybe I could at least do the concept art, but I'm not good at art, so that was out the window too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do the history part.
Yeah, and the history part was enough to satisfy you.
Yeah. History part, and just there's always more video games to play too, so both of them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And did the history always stay with ancient history, or did it like branch out?
Ancient, and then like Renaissance I would get into, and then colonial history, like 17th, 18th century. That did interest me a lot, and I would read about that too. But as soon as it gets into like American history, like basically after the Civil War in American history, that's just when like I lose all interest. And I could not tell you why, but after that like kind of time period, like when it gets to, early 1900s and World War I and II do interest me, but just not as much as like ancient warfare and all that stuff.
Yeah, you don't know why though? Any idea?
I think it's because I understand the later history more. Like I look back at the early 1900s and it's really like it's different for sure, but it's not that different. Like I can clearly, but when I look back at ancient history or medieval history or even like 17th century, everything is just so different, and it's so interesting to me to just think about like everyday tasks and stuff and how, because they were done completely different back then. So it just interests me a lot more. And as soon as you get to like more modern government types and politics and all sorts of stuff like that, I'm just like, this is boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. There's not as much to explore and like figure out and get into.
Explore.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for telling me about that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no problem.
So like when you found this book club, you found some more people to hang out with, and you were just enjoying life. And then did you feel pressure at that time to go to college or start preparing for that? Is that's like another, I think, transition kind of that a lot of people take.
Yeah, absolutely. It was around that time of me going to book group and stuff that my sister started going to the community college in Austin. And it was also my stepdad and my mom, but mostly my stepdad. He's the kind of guy that was like, he didn't go to college, but he's the kind of guy that's like, you should go to college so you can get a degree just to have it if you need it. And so he was like the main kind of like pressure on us, I guess. And so that the pressure probably started around when I turned 17. That's when he started saying like, you should think about college. And I was just like, I'll do that later. And then later in 2018, he was like, you should think about college. And I was like, yeah, I'll sometime. And then 2019, he was like, you should go to college like right now. Like, I'll pay for your first semester if you go to college, which is a really good deal. And I was like, it's just, for me, I have to, because of the money situation, I have to have some kind of plan if I'm going to go into it. And I just don't know what I want to do. So I really don't want to just go take a few semesters of college and just not figure it out there, because there's a lot of anxieties there. And also a part of me, especially at the time, that prevented me from just going when he was telling me to, was I was still a little bit self-conscious about my level of education in certain subjects. So I felt like if I had to go take the SAT or something, I wouldn't do well enough. And, he always made a good point. He was like, just study for a few weeks and you'll be fine. But I was like, no, it's not going to work. And so for a while, I think it was the social anxiety, the money worries, and the fear of failing that kept me from going. And nowadays, it's actually more of a personal thing for me. Because like I said, I don't want to go to college to figure it out. Because I don't, at least not in this country, that's just not a good idea, I don't feel. And it's also, I'm a person to learn and educate myself. I have to be motivated by something, whether it's interest in it or have some sort of goal. And for me, just getting a degree to have a degree is not motivating enough. So I think the only way I would be able to succeed in college is if I did actually have some sort of goal, like I knew what I was working towards and I wanted it. Then I think I could do it. But as of right now, I don't have any idea what I want to do. And so here I am, moving out, getting a job, and I don't really have a plan for life, but I'm just going to start saving up money, move out, get my independence, and we'll see where life takes me from there, I guess.
Yeah, do you think what do you think if someone tells you like the motivation to go to college should be that you'll be able to get a good job even if you don't know exactly what it is?
Well, I understand that logic. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I have a friend who's still in St. Louis, and he's going to college for a job in cybersecurity, which is a very stable, a nice job. He doesn't really have any desire to do it, but he's doing it and he'll have a job when he gets out. And I understand that. But for me, that's just not enough of a motivation because I can make a living at a job without a degree.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think I can. I hope I can. And so I don't know. It's like I do understand, and life would be easier if I did have a degree. For me, doing 4 years of grueling college just to have that degree to maybe put it to use and have a decent job. Like having a decent paying job does not mean enough to me if I'm not excited about it to, I'm not gonna say waste, but use 4 years of my life to accomplish that.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather spend my free time when I'm not working just doing what I want to do. That makes me happy.
Right. So, why do you think I imagine there's so much uncertainty with moving out, even if it's with some people you know?
Yeah.
But why is that? How do I word this? Like, why is whatever comes with that more important to you than taking the risk with college?
That's a good question. I think it's more important to me because I value my free time, and I really like being able to do what makes me feel happy and be around people that I want to be around and hang out with them. And I have a lot of friends who are currently going to college, and I just don't get to hang out or see them ever because they're so busy. And all of those friends, their parents are fully paying for all of their college, which I don't know. The thing is, my parents say they will help me with college, but we don't have the money for them to just completely fully pay for it. And yes, student loans are a thing, but I mean, essentially it is about money too, because he could pay for a semester or two of college, but then I would have to get student loans to pay for the rest of it, and then so that's several years of college, just taking up all of my time, and then once I get out, it's several years of paying that off with a job. And so for the time being, I guess it's just more important to me to feel more like an adult first before I make any major life decision like that. I want to go out in the world and get my independence and kind of leave the nest, so to speak. And I also don't, as much as I appreciate it, I don't want my parents to just spend all of their money on me and just try to give me the college experience, because that would just make me feel guilty. So I do think if I do go to college, probably the course it would take is the course that my sister took, going to Austin Community College, because it is far cheaper and I will be living in Austin. So I think feasibly I could take a few classes and work and still pay rent and everything, which would make me a lot happier than staying at home and having my parents pay for my college while I went. So to try to answer your question, I think it's the independence part of it. I really want to just stop relying on other people for my living, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I see that. How did you how did you realize, or not realize, why did you not decide to give into that pressure you felt?
It was a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety had a lot to do with it, because I think if I hadn't have been so scared of college and the thought of it at the time, I probably would have given into it and like taken the SAT and applied. I did actually at one point fill out an application for Texas State University, and I never sent it in. And one of the reasons for that is because just to send in the application costed $70. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to go yet. I'm not going to spend $70. So I just deleted it.
They're so expensive to send in an application.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
No.
But yeah, I would say mostly at the beginning, definitely the anxiety and the fear of failing at it is what kept me from pursuing that. And then, like I said, later on, it became more of a personal thing where I wanted it, if I was going to do it, I wanted it to have a purpose, and I wanted it to be me doing it, not my parents, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, it was like, so the anxiety stopped you at first, but now it's more like you want to make the decision for yourself. And from yourself.
Yeah.
And when you're gonna move out soon, are you still gonna be in contact with that book club, or
So yes, I hope so. I'm still in contact with some of them. We haven't actually gotten to meet since the whole COVID thing started. So really, I think the last meet we had was in February or January. So it's been a while, but I still do get in contact with some of them, some more than others, but I don't know if it will ever start up fully again, which does a part of me that, this saddens me, but I have the contact information for everyone, and I do still keep up with most of them, at least every once in a while. So yes, I hope I stay in contact. And even if I don't, because I've gone months without talking to some of them, but when I do talk to them again, because they're like a second family, it's just like, it's like no time has passed. So I'm not and I am actually going to be closer to a lot of them as well, because the book group took place in Austin. So
I see. So you're moving to Austin.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Does everyone in the book club, were they homeschoolers? I don't know. I forget if you mentioned this. Or were they like all homeschooled people? Or other people mixed in?
There were a few people that had gone to public school for some time at least, but everyone that was in the book group was at that time homeschooled or unschooled. So yeah, I think a couple of them went to public school most of their lives, but yeah, everyone was homeschooled while we were doing it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, to what extent you have connections with people outside of that community of homeschoolers. Do you have any friends who are in college but they've gone through like the public school system?
Going back to my Dungeons and Dragons group. So 3 of them, because it's my brother and I who are both homeschooled, and then there are 3 other people, and all of them just went to public school the whole time, fully. 2 of them just went through high school and haven't gone to college. The third one, which is actually my brother's girlfriend, she went through the whole public school system through high school, and she's currently enrolled in college right now. And she's actually one of the people that has encouraged me to go to college, but also said it is good to have a goal and know what you want to do, because she knows what she wants to do. She's specifically going for that, and it motivates her. So she kind of steered me in that direction a little bit more too, because for a while it was like one person was telling me, oh, you should just go to college, get a degree. One person was saying you shouldn't go to college at all because it's expensive, and the system is all whack and everything. But she was kind of the middle ground voice of reason that was like, college is great and you should go, but you should know what you're doing first instead of just going in blind to it. So yeah.
I see. Do you guys ever talk about like how school, or is that just secondary thing? It's more that doesn't really matter.
Definitely more of a, like, we don't often talk about it at all. Every once in a while they'll all they'll all exchange like crazy or just fun high school stories, because they're early to mid 20s, so that's just every once in a while they'll get together and just tell us all a bunch of weird high school stories, and it's really a lot of fun to just sit and listen to them. And then it is a little bit weird though. It's less weird and more just funny that I can't really tell them any tales. I'm just like, oh yeah, this one time, because I was at home the whole time. So that's probably the only time it's really like noticed that our backgrounds were different, is when they're sharing their stories and I just have really nothing to give them that's super interesting. But I mean, it's really played more for laughs than anything. I would say 99.9% of the time it just doesn't come up at all.
Yeah. You really don't have anything interesting though from that time? Interesting stories?
Not particularly. I mean, I'm sure I could come up with something. Crazy stuff happened during those years, I'm sure, but it's not like it didn't take place in high school. It was just my life. It's a lot harder to think of, because they're just like, oh yeah, you remember this thing that happened in school? And I'm just like trying to think of something that happened to me. It's a lot harder to do.
It's like it's a different context.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess I'm just happy that it's not such a big deal, that you guys have different schooling experiences. Yeah. And do you ever worry that you haven't found that passion, or do you ever just think like, I need to find it, I need to find what I want to do? Do you have those thoughts?
Oh yeah, definitely, especially now that I'm about to move out, because it's just, I mean, I am excited and it's going to be a huge transition. It's going to be great, but it's also like, where do I go from here once I move out? And I'm just working, paying rent, basically doing the same thing I'm doing right now, but away from home. It's like, how long can I really just do that? So there is definitely a part of me that's like, I need to start trying to find something, like some kind of, even if it doesn't involve college, just some kind of life goal to work towards. Because right now I really just don't have anything, which is fine, but it does definitely linger in the back of my mind. Like, I need to, sometimes when I'm laying in bed at night, I'm like, maybe I won't find anything that interests me, and I'll just have to do what everyone's been telling me to do forever and go to college just to get a degree and find a random, the first job I can find with it and be happy with that. But for the time being, I'm still okay with just living life and hoping that eventually I'll find something that I have the drive and ambition to work towards.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you'll be fine because you, like you said, you have that motivation. You know you have that motivation, right? Where I think you said you have to be motivated to like go and learn something or do something, because school won't necessarily do that for you.
Yeah.
But like, are you okay with just doing a random job for like the rest of your life? Is there something about that bothers you?
Not necessarily. I think I could definitely find happiness outside of the workplace, just finding a nice work-life balance and being happy with that. I think what mainly scares me about it is the here and now part of just, because right now I have a job that I don't necessarily love. It's kind of just a random job. And so for me, the thought of spending 4 years and a bunch of money to basically do the same thing but earn a little bit more money is just not super enticing. It's not enough to make me want to go do that.
Yeah. I guess so. Is it more like the concern to find the balance where you can be earning enough money but living the life you want?
Yeah. Right now it is definitely a balance of making enough money to essentially survive in an apartment in Austin, and then just be able to be happy outside of that and just basically live life. And yeah, with the college thing, again, it's just like because money isn't a super big deal to me. Like I don't really have much of a drive to be wealthy or get rich or anything. It's just about finding the balance, because I'm perfectly happy just playing Dungeons and Dragons and video games with my friends. Like that's really all I need, and maybe the occasional road trip, and I'm set. So I think I can do that without college. And I think college to me, instead of being a surrogate just to get more money from a better job, it's going to have to be for a job that I do actually enjoy doing, that I am passionate about, even if it doesn't pay well. Like my friend who's going to college that I talked about earlier, she's going to college to be an English teacher, which teachers do not get paid well, and she's very aware of that. And there are times where she's like, why am I doing this? But she's passionate about it and she wants to do it, and that's why she's doing it. So yeah, something like,
I see, something like that. So disregarding college, do you think it's necessary to have a goal or like some sort of passion to strive, something you're passionate about to strive for? I don't know. I guess I don't know how to word it. Do you think that's necessary, or is it just okay to, I don't know, play Dungeons and Dragons with your friends and like hang out and make enough money to survive?
I think that's a really good question. I think honestly it depends on the person. And right now I am happy with just surviving and doing those things. But like you said, there is a part of me, whether it's personal or like a societal pressure, there is a part of me that's like, you got to find something to work towards. You can't just stay the same forever. But I mean, right now I am happy, and I think for a lot of people that is perfectly acceptable. I mean, if you're happy with the way your life is a certain way and you don't necessarily want or need any sort of change in it, then I think that's a perfectly fine way to live.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's fine. What part of you motivates yourself? Or no, I don't even think that's motivation. Like, what part of you is urging you to look towards some sort of change, or urging you that you need to find a goal or find something?
I think, honestly, I think it has a lot to do with both of my siblings, which I reference them a lot because they're just a really big part of my life for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They are not only family, but they're two of my best friends too, and I talk to both of them almost every day. And my sister, she's going to college. She has somewhat of a plan when she gets out, and she's always been more academically ambitious, and like really smart. And my brother, he's been living the same way that I'm about to start living when I move out with them for about 2 years now, where he's just been working and living in an apartment with his friends. And for him, I see a potential, like I guess myself just in the future in him, because he is starting to get weary of just having a job that he doesn't really enjoy, and then coming home, and he doesn't even get to see his roommate all that often, who he moved out with, because they have different schedules.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just, he's working full time, he's coming home, sleeping and eating, and he's going back to work. And I see that fatigue in him, and he's related to me that he is getting tired of it and he wants to find something. So I guess that's kind of what's making, because at the moment I am content with just working and then having a life, but I can definitely see, I guess, through him that it's going to get old for me eventually. Even if I'm happy with it for the time being, eventually there's going to be something more to life that I want. So I'm just hoping that I find it eventually.
Yeah, I understand. If you could define like something more in a few words, what do you think that is? Not like specifically what you think it means you're going to be doing, but like, what is that you're looking for? I mean, since you haven't found it, you don't know exactly.
Yeah. Just something to work for, I guess, instead of just money to pay the bills, something to work towards, whether it be a career or education, or even if I decide I want to start traveling the world one day and I just start saving up money specifically for that purpose. Just having some kind of desire for something, I guess, some kind of drive like that. Because right now, I don't really have anything like that, which again, I'm fine with, but I do at some point in my life want to have something that I can say I'm going to do this, no matter how long it takes. And so yeah, I guess it would be just something that I can actually have a purpose for, some kind of purpose, I guess.
Yeah.
Say.
Right. Some sort of purpose. Do you have any ideas about that? Like, is the traveling the world thing just a random thing?
There are definitely places I want to go, but they're, it's more just like, ooh, I'd love to go here one day, but it's, and I'm sure I will at some point, but it's less of like oh, this is my dream, and more of a just like, oh yeah, someday I'll travel here. But who knows? Maybe one day I will travel and I'll decide I love it, and I'll be.
Who knows?
I have a stepbrother who went to college and had a decent paying job, and then he decided he didn't like that life of just like working, the average Joe life, and he got super into rock climbing, and now he lives out of a bus with his girlfriend, and they live out of a bus and they rock climb, and they're super happy with it. So that gives me a little bit of hope that maybe one day I'll find my version of rock climbing, and I'll just be like, oh yeah, if I can do this, then I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you were younger, did you have any sorts of dreams or aspirations? That you can remember, I guess?
For most of my childhood, I want to say no, but when I was really young, I wanted to be an archaeologist. I was super into dinosaurs back then. And so I was just like, yes, if anyone asked me what I wanted to be, I would say that. I had not really a plan, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to get through school, and I'm going to be an archaeologist. I can't say the word, but you understand. And then basically, as soon as I started, as soon as primary school started, like first and second grade, I got less into dinosaurs, and then that just fizzled out. And I haven't had anything that I was that passionate about since then.
Since the dinosaurs?
Since the dinosaurs, yeah.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know.
So, now you have zero interest in dinosaurs?
I wouldn't say zero interest. I still think they're cool, but I definitely have no desire to make a career out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, career and what you like doing could be completely unrelated.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, rock climbing doesn't sound very lucrative. I don't know.
Yeah. I think he's finding a way to turn it into he's got some kind of job. They're out in Utah. He's got some kind of job where he's I think a rock climbing tour guide, kind of a guide for people that go canyoneering and stuff. So yeah, I think he and his girlfriend just do that to make enough money, and then they don't really have many bills because they're living in a bus.
Yeah,
so
there's that.
They're yeah, I took a road trip up with him because he had to get a new car, and I lived in a tent next to their bus for a few days, so I kind of got to see how they live. And they're living in a bus, they're making it work, and they're super happy with it, which is I think it's just great. Because for me, I was I don't know that I could live in a bus just because I'm so used to my comfy bed and my desk and my computer and video games and everything. but they're making it work and they're super happy with it. So that gives me a lot of hope that anyone can find something that makes them happy, because I don't think he envisioned himself living in a bus when he was going to college, but there he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a hopeful story. Mm-hmm. Mm. Do you have anything, I guess, I know your whole book club experience, like we went over that, it was very lucky. But do you have any advice for somebody who might be struggling through something similar that you were struggling through at that time? Like a really big life transition, and maybe they're struggling with feeling awkward around people and finding a community to connect with?
Yeah. Trying to think of something for me, because I did just get lucky, so it's hard to give advice when I just lucked out like I did. But to a certain extent, you do have to put yourself out there, but it definitely helps to have, like, because all of the friends that I made, I originally first met them with other people that I was also already comfortable around. So mutual friends, and if you're going out with friends, meeting mutual friends, stuff like that, it for me is a lot easier than just trying to go out and make friends one-on-one. And it's just making yourself go out there and do things like go apply for a job. You'll meet people at your job. Find some kind of activity that you enjoy. Video games is actually not a bad example, because there are so many video games that are online and you can talk to people or meet people. Dungeons and Dragons is a very social thing, and it's really easy to meet people through that. You just find something that interests you and pursue that, and I do think eventually you'll meet people that are also interested in that one way or another, and you'll make friends that way for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is tough though. I mean, it's not easy to make yourself do that, so having some kind of support is definitely helpful, like I did.
Yeah. That support is definitely, like, I think it can really shape someone when they have that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, I think a lot of people find their friends through Dungeons and Dragons, from my experience. Yeah. I mean, it's not my favorite thing, but I've seen, like, people really connect over it.
Yeah. I didn't know one of the people, I didn't know at all who's in our group. I met him the first session that we had, and now he's like a super close friend, and we're like a really close, like tight-knit friend group now. So I do think it's a great way to meet people, but it's also not for everyone. So
Yeah.
you gotta find your thing.
Mm-hmm. Find your thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think with Dungeons and Dragons, one of the things is it's like it's a, how do I put, like, it's permission to just be silly, and
Yeah. Yes,
like, just let yourself run wild.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something like everyone in my group, not everyone, but most of the people in my group have some kind of like crazy accent or voice that they do for their characters. So like you said, it's kind of just like people just being completely silly and being a completely different person. And then afterwards, when you're just like hanging out as people after the session, it's just a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of laughs going around just talking about what happened. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, that one is definitely, and I didn't think I would like it at all. And I went to the first session, and even then I was like, oh, that was okay. But then they invited me back again, and I was like, why not? And now we all love it. So,
yeah, so it's like trying new things too, being open to new experiences, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, my brother, I probably wouldn't have done it if my brother and my friend weren't already in the group. Like, if it was just a group of strangers, there's no way I would have done it. I was like, there would have been no way I would have just started role playing like around strangers. But I did go because I had a little support group there already, and now I have a thing that I love doing, and I don't care. Like, because it's awkward at first, just being someone else and putting on a different voice and like acting like a different person. But now it's like it's like a normal thing. Like, no one even bats an eye when someone starts using their voice, and so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I guess for me, I thought I would enjoy it a lot, but I don't think I could ever get past the awkwardness that you're talking about. I don't know why. I just, when it felt like, when I was playing, it felt like a performance, and that just made it very difficult for me.
I mean, it's all about finding the right people. I really do. That's another instance I think I lucked out with this specific group with the D&D. Because there's some of the people in my book group actually have their own D&D group that I've never gone to. They just play it like amongst themselves. And they invited me one time, and even then, even though I know them pretty well, I was like, I don't know. That seems like it would be weird, just like crossing those two things, So you definitely have to find the right people for it. But I think it's kind of the same with any kind of, I guess, activity or hobby like that you find. You have to just find the right people. Because that can, if you have a bad bunch, that can just completely ruin your whole experience with it, I think.
I see. Have you had an experience where you went somewhere and it was just like the people were not right, and I kind of like, did you ever were invited to something and then you just felt like they were not the right people? Like with the D&D and book club, it sounds like those were the right people for you, but did you have the opposite experience?
I'm trying to think. I really haven't had too many negative experiences with like, I mean, I've been invited to a few parties where I guess like kind of your generic. Hold on a second. Hello. Sorry.
Oh.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's cool. It's your dog.
Yeah, she's super old. She sleeps in my bed with me. But yeah, so actually, when I was like a teenager, like 16, 17, I got invited and actually surprisingly went to a few just like generic kind of teenage parties where people were just like listening to music, and there was consumption of alcohol and stuff. I remember just standing there, and like the people were nice enough. We didn't really have anything super in common, and so I still had a good time. But I remember just thinking like, yeah, this is just not for me. Just like going to parties just to be in a crowd of people. Like, I don't know. There's something about it that just socializing just to socialize with crowds of people just doesn't work for me.
I see. Well, how did you recognize that it wasn't for you? Was it just the discomfort?
It was the discomfort, and eventually it was actually starting to get over the discomfort, and then realizing that I wasn't having a super great time, even though I wasn't super uncomfortable anymore. And that's when I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, this isn't really worth it for me to like get over that barrier, or at least try to get over that anxiety, and then anyway still just not even enjoying myself.
Yeah. I see. So, yeah, that's interesting to me, just because I guess I haven't thought too much about that before, where it's like asking yourself, am I enjoying this experience? This without that discomfort, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which can be really tough to do when you do have that discomfort. When you are uncomfortable, it's really hard to imagine what it'd be like if you weren't. But yeah, I haven't really had too many negative experiences though, where I've met people and been like, oh yeah, this isn't for me. I mean, I've met people I don't like, of course, but that's just life. But
yeah.
For the most part, I've gotten lucky in that most of the time when I try something new, it's with people that are just great.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Yeah.
I'm very grateful for that. It also means I'm bound to have some very negative experiences at some point, though.
Oh, you shouldn't say that. Don't jinx it.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Well, maybe. Well, we'll only see. We'll have to see in the future what happens. So, what kind of video games do you play?
Really all sorts. There's that historical game franchise I mentioned, Total War. It's like a strategy game. Lots of first-person shooters, Skyrim, stuff like that. RPGs. Mainly games that I can play with my friends online. We get on Discord and we'll play something. So lately, we downloaded this free-to-play game on Steam called Deceit. And it's been a lot of fun. There are like some people that are innocent and some people that are like secretly monsters, and you have to like figure out who's evil. And it's just like, it's a lot of yelling, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I see. Yeah, that sounds fun. It's like just a way to connect with your friends.
Yeah.
And I think video. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, all of us been playing video games like since we were children, basically. So it's like it's always been more of a social thing too, where it's like you get together with your friends and play something instead of just like by yourself in your room, you know. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I forget.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. It wasn't anything important. But so were video games ever like an escape for you, or was it really just more of that social thing?
It is definitely an escape, especially like when we did move and moving to Texas, being home alone more, going through like the divorce and everything. I do think like I tried to just pretend like I wasn't super bothered by it by playing video games, and I told myself, this is fine, I'm living the life. Like, I'm lucky that I can just stay home and play video games all day, because that's what every kid my age wants to do. But it was definitely a way, because when I wasn't playing video games, like, you know, it was, I would freak out sometimes, because it was a lot to process for a little 12-year-old me.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, I think that's, like, a lot of people use video games as an escape. It's really handy for that.
It is, definitely. I mean, it's like, because you just completely forget about all of your worries, because you're just in a whole nother world. And you can do that with other things too, like books or really anything. But with video games, it's like that's their job, is to suck you in and get you like addicted to it. So it's definitely an easy avenue for a lot of people, myself included, even still today. Sometimes, like when I'm stressed out or super anxious or sometimes even sad, like that's oftentimes what I go to is video games. Which, you know, we could debate whether or not that's healthy, but at the end of the day, it's healthier than drugs or alcohol. So,
definitely. I mean, yeah, to be aware of it too is very, like, important. It's very important to know that it's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, people use all sorts of things, right? It's not just video games. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to say or add on that we haven't talked about yet?
I'm trying to think. I think I pretty much got everything I wanted to say about college out of the way. In terms of, I think, like what we were talking about earlier, of like what you asked about, like how it is interacting with people who went to public school. I think now that it has been several years for both of us since high school, like once you get out of high school, there's like very little to no barrier there, and like no one cares. But when you are in high school, there is definitely, I feel like, kind of stigma that comes with homeschoolers. And I used to be almost a little bit defensive about that. Like I would hear people say like, oh, homeschoolers are weird. And I'd be like, we're not that weird. But eventually, you know, after a few years of it, I kind of like, yeah, the homeschooling is different. And every kid I met as a homeschooler was much different at the time than someone who went to public school. So it's like, there is a barrier there, but it's not as big as you would think it would be. And like, really, because no one cares about high school when you get out of it, it's, I mean, you can make friends with anyone and no one is going to care after high school. So why should you care when you're in high school, whether someone is homeschooled or going to public school or private or unschooled or whatever.
Yeah. How do you think homeschoolers were different from your experience?
They were much more blunt, I guess. Like, and again, I dropped out of public school in second grade when kids were still pretty blunt. But based off of what I did experience and what my siblings experienced, there was a lot more kind of drama and kids just like trying to be cool and fit in. Even myself, I was trying to be cool and like do cool things. Like, look at me. Whereas homeschoolers are pretty much just looking to have a good time, because when you see them, it's usually at a social event, and that's what they're there for. They're there to have fun. So they don't really care what you think about them most of the time. And that's not to say they don't have like the social anxieties and all that sorts of stuff, but there was a lot less drama and a lot more, I guess, just like, hey, do you want to play tag, or do you want to go walk over here, or just good old fashioned kid tomfoolery, and less trying to have like social status, I guess. Which oftentimes made them, I mean, there were a lot of kids that were super awkward, and there were a lot of awkward interactions, but it was like to a point now where everyone kind of expected that, which made it less awkward and more just like a part of it. Like a part of the experience was just having those interactions with kids. But sometimes I do miss it, honestly, because it was, I mean, going to a homeschooled like park day where it's just a bunch of homeschooled kids like sitting around just trying to find something to do to pass the time, like it was pretty great.
Yeah, it wasn't boring.
It was absolutely boring. It was absolutely boring, but the times it wasn't, it was well worth it. And a lot of my fondest childhood memories were formed there, just trying to have fun with kids that were also just trying to have fun.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I remember having a view of homeschoolers that wasn't great when I was in public school. I remember that. And then I just think, I don't know. I try to think about how to connect that with my decision to drop out of high school and basically unschool, which is close to homeschooling.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. But there's that judgment from other people that you talked about, and definitely from other kids. It's like kids are the worst with that.
Kids are the worst. Well, that's what I mean. Like, anyone who has graduated high school does not care. It's only like teenagers and tweens that care at all, and they'll just like pick on you for it. Even though I didn't really talk to many public school kids during that time period, so I never really had to deal with that. But you definitely heard like words, and you'd watch a show or movies and they would mention homeschoolers and everyone would just get a weird face. It's like, we're not that weird. Oh.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I mean, I would think it's the adults who are like, you should get proper schooling, but for the worst critics to be kids, that's pretty sad, I think.
It is, but kids, what can you do about them?
Yeah, that's true too.
There definitely were adults, like even today, the term like unschooling to a lot of people, I think, is still like a negative term. I think a lot of people just don't understand. I didn't understand for the longest time. Like, I really did think it just meant you had no education whatsoever. And so I think that's how a lot of people view it too, where it's just they hear the term unschooler and they're just like, oh, so it's a kid that like can't even read or what? But in reality, it's really not all that different from homeschooling. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. But yeah, I don't really think I have any more advice to give people.
Okay. How would you explain unschooling to someone with your current understanding of it and what you went through?
So for me, schooling and education are, I mean, I guess they're obviously connected, but they're not the same exact thing. They're not synonymous with each other. So when you think of school, you think obviously of public school, and it's like super organized and everything. And then homeschooling is basically trying to be school, but just at home, where you still have someone teaching you, you still have a schedule, you're still getting the work done just at home instead of at a public place. And then unschooling, I view more of just, I guess, self-directed learning. I'm very fond of that phrase, self-directed learning, because it's just, you learn from life experiences. You just learn what you want to learn, and naturally. And I mean, everyone learns stuff just from living their life, but really just finding what you're interested in, and learning about what you want to learn about, and in a way that you want to learn about it, because not everyone can, I guess, absorb knowledge the same way, just sitting and reading, or doing, like, writing stuff out. It doesn't work the same for everyone. Some people learn better through videos. Some people learn better through just a teacher explaining it to them. Some have a more hands-on approach. Like, everyone is different. So for me, that's what I think of now when I think of unschooling, is just people finding what works for them and learning just whatever they want to learn, instead of, and that goes for even if they want to go to college, because a lot of unschoolers actually do go to college and they practice for the SAT, they get into a college, and they do a fantastic job because they just learn what they have to learn in whatever way works best for them. And I think that's kind of what defines it for me, is just the different ways of learning, instead of just going to a school and doing what they tell you to do and taking tests and worrying about grades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like you have a pretty clear idea of it, even. Yeah, even from experiencing it, like from the inside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain your username, the human squid?
That is an inside joke between one of my best friends and I. I went to visit him in St. Louis, and we went to a pool, and I started just like swimming and moving my arms in a way that I guess he said it made me look like a squid. So I started just like doing that a bunch, and it made him laugh so hard that he almost like we had to get him out of the pool because he couldn't swim. He was laughing so hard. And I was probably like 13 when that happened, and I just started making that my username for everything, and I haven't changed it since then. It just kind of stuck. Yeah.
That's fun. Thanks. Okay. So finally, what does it mean for you to walk your path?
That's a really good question. I would say find what makes you happy. That's kind of a cop-out question, but a cop-out answer, I mean. But I really, when it comes down to it, I mean, when it comes to education, just public school might be for you, or maybe it's homeschooling or unschooling. If you're in any of those and you're maybe not super happy with it, try another one.